So I got a flat tire here on our 2011 Chrysler Town & Country. So I'm gonna quickly change this. So first thing we need to do is I put the emergency brake on. For safety, after I put the emergency brake on, I have this board that I kick that under the tire to reduce any rollback. And then I'm gonna go through and loosen these lugs. So once we have those loosened, then the next thing we're going to do is we're going to jack the car. So I have the jack right here. Safety first, so after you notice they have a flat tire, if you can pump it up and you can get to somewhere that's flat, with the 2011, the jack is made for this slot here to fit up underneath this bar. Next we're going to take our jack, and you can see we have the nut right here. We're going to have that facing out from the minivan. We want the top of this to line up right here on this flat portion. And then we're going to have this little gap here fit up along here. As you can see, there's a little ridge there. If you have a board, sometimes it's kind of nice to have a board. I don't really like to apply that pressure. I've had it before where these actually curl over if that actually seats into this on my other Dodge, and then you end up having rust issues. But I'm just going to jack this up here. Right now I'm just doing it by hand until I can get it in place. So I'm going to lift this up into place, and once we have that, now that we have this in place, the next step will be to jack it up. So we're just using our jack from the car and the wrench that was supplied. Our lug nuts are loosened. We have our emergency brake on. I placed a board in the back on the opposite tire. And now we're just going to crank this up to lift that tire. And now as the car starts to lift up, we're just going to need a little bit of clearance. And so now that tire is free. So my next step here, I'll remove this wrench, and I'm going to remove the rest of these lugs. So now I can wheel this tire out of the way. Next, what I like to do is I like to put the spare back on. Since I'm at home, I have kids that are running around, and just in case they come out and something happens, at least there's a tire to fall back onto. So just a little bit safer. And then I just hand tighten these. Next I will look for what's causing my flat. And it's already right here. You can see there's like a nail right here. If you release some air, it'll have less pressure pushed up against whatever's holding that in place. So I'm going to deflate the tire. So the more you expand your tire, the more inflated it is. It just expands that rubber and actually smashes it tighter into it. So now to get this out, I'm going to use my needle nose pliers. So if it's a nail, it'll actually be a little easier because then I can just pull it out. But if it's a screw, I might run into issue. So that is it. It was a screw. And then I have a slime tire plug kit. So I've used this a few times. So we have this little ream bar. So that's the first thing I'm going to use. So you're going to get that in there, and we're going to spin that down. So once I've spun that in, and you're actually going to want to spin it so that you get it in the same slot. I kind of want to ream it there a little bit. remember that angle. So after rasping the tire, I will pull out the plug tool and the plugs, and it also comes with some rubber cement. So these are the next parts that I'm going to use. So I'm going to get one of my plugs. And now that I have this, I'm actually going to feed it through here. So what we'll end up doing is we will push this in, and then we're going to pull out. So now that I have this in here, I'm going to use some of my rubber cement that it comes with. And I'm going to coat this with rubber cement. And I always like to put a little here. So we're going to push it in. And it's going to go about 2/3 of the way in. Okay, so now I've shoved it in. And then with a quick motion, we're going to pull it out. And it should stay in there. So I pulled that out, and now we have that sealed in there. Next, I go through and make sure I have everything capped and cleaned up. Tire safety kits are nice to have in the car. I've been out before where I'm out on a dirt road and have actually run into a piece of rebar one time and was able to fix the flat so I could get home instead of being stuck out, 10 miles out in the middle of nowhere. So next thing we're going to need to do is we're going to fill up the tire, make sure there's no leaks, and then we're actually going to cut this off. And we'll cut that flush with the tire. And this was also one of the slime products I got. I highly suggest having an air pump, a portable one. I keep this in my car, and it has saved me on 2 occasions. So definitely worth having, and there's nothing nicer than getting a flat, fixing it right there, and just being able to continue on. So we're going to fill this tire full now. I have a side cutters, which works nice. So now that I've filled the tire up, I did stop the small air compressor. These portable air compressors have a tendency to overheat and can get damaged. So I stopped it twice through this process. I got it up to 40 pounds. And then we need to cut this flush. Sometimes a knife works or a razor blade. Here I'm just going to use a side cutter. And we're going to cut those off flush with the tread. That's flush, and now we're going to reinstall onto the car. So now I'm going to put it back on the car. So these are all hand tightened, so I can just take these off, and you don't have to do this part if you feel safe. Sometimes it's a hassle to get this spare out, so you might not want to do it. I already had the spare out, so it makes it nice and easy for me. And then we're going to wheel our tire back over. And I just barely had enough room, so be careful when you're pushing it on if there's not a lot of room. And then we don't really want to tighten these too tight while it's on the jack, so that should be good. And I'm just going to lower the jack down now. And then when you tighten these, you want to go in a cross pattern. So I went top, bottom, top, side. So then when I put these on, you want to go across. So I started here at the top, went down, up, and you're always going to go diagonal. And just go through them a second time. And I lowered the tire most of the way just so I could get some pressure on the tire. So now I'm going to remove my jack. So what I'm going to do then after I'm done, I'm going to drive on this tire for a couple miles. I'll come back out and I'll tighten those lugs in that crisscross pattern. Drive on a couple more miles just to make sure everything's secure. Tighten it one last time, and then we should be good. Monitor, make sure that this tire isn't leaking any air. I have it at 40 pounds. I'm hoping it stays at around 40 pounds. But monitor that tire. Best of luck. Please watch one of my other videos, and please subscribe.